Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our today's office hour on California's BEAD subgrantee selection process. My name is Ali Eshraghi, and I serve as a program and project supervisor for the BEAD program here at the California Public Utilities Commission. I'm joined today by my colleagues from the CPUC and CTC Technology and Energy, and they will introduce themselves as we go through through your questions. If we can go to agenda slide. So here's the agenda for today's session. We have started with a brief welcome and some housekeeping notes. This includes an overview of how to navigate the Zoom interface and the scope of today's office hour. We'll then move on the main segment of today's session, where we'll address your questions and provide answers we can. And if we need to take some of your questions back, we'll do that and include them in our FAQ document. And finally, we cover the wrap up by outlining the next steps and sharing some important reminders. Next slide. Let's cover some guidelines for participation in today's Q&A session. To ask questions, please write your question in the chat, raise your hand, and wait to be called on before speaking. Keep yourself on mute until it's your turn to speak. If you are called upon to clarify any parts of your question, please provide the clarification in the chat afterward. This helps us accurately capture your input for inclusion in our FAQ document. We'll start with the first round of questions and giving everyone a chance to ask one question. Please avoid multi-part questions during this round. After the initial round, if time allows, we open the floor to additional questions. If you'd like to follow up on someone else's question, please write it in the chat and wait to be called upon. Thank you for your cooperation. Next slide. So here's some information to guide today's session. This session is focused on questions about the subgrantee selection process, specifically the topics covered in our previous webinars. We have them available on our website if you need to check those. Several aspects of the BEAD program are still being finalized. Some questions may need to be addressed in a future session or in our FAQ document, as I mentioned earlier. There will be questions that we might not be able to provide answer during this session. We will take those questions back, review them, and include the responses in our FAQ document. If you have questions about the challenge process or the map that has been discussed last week, please email them to bead@cpuc.ca.gov. This session is focused on the subgrant selection process, and we may not have the subject matter experts present to address challenge-related questions. As a reminder, the CPUC is required to follow the rules established by the NTIA, which administers the BEAD program. And as I mentioned earlier, the questions and answers from today's meeting will be posted in the FAQ section of our website. Additionally, we are recording this session, and the recording will also be made available on our website. The FAQ document, as I mentioned, the first version has been posted already, and we are working to post the second version, which includes the questions that we have received from you through different venues in the next couple of business days. Thank you for joining us today, and let's get started. So, as I mentioned, now we are ready for your question. If you have any question, please write your question in the chat and wait to be called on before speaking. Okay, let me go through the first question. Marin County has 2 adjacent census block groups in the BEAD project area, which cover 160 square miles containing 350 unserved BSLs, 2.19 BSLs per square mile. To reach 100% of the BSLs, we must construct fiber on sections of roads in neighboring Sonoma County and roads in an adjacent Marin County census block group outside our bid project area. Is this acceptable under the grant rules, and are there any limits? Z, can I answer?
Yeah.
Do you have an answer to this?
Yeah, a project area can cross county boundaries, so that would not be a problem at all.
Thank you. So waiting for the next questions. I wanted to learn more about the sub-grantee pre-qualification information needed. Is there a draft pre-qual application available yet? Sorry, it seems my camera went off. It's not, we haven't published a pre-qual yet. There are some webinars that you can go through to get more information, and we are basically finalizing those alongside and incorporating those in our GMS system. And please check back our website, and we will inform the stakeholders through the email, the service list, when those are available. Is the application window only open from March 23rd to April 9th? Jonathan, do you want to provide an answer to that?
Sure. So the application window is actually open, I believe it's till April 25th, but the pre-qualification window is scheduled to close on April 9th. We have the ability to reconsider that, but at this point we're anticipating there'll be more curing related to the pre-qualification window, which is why we are closing that. I can also address Michelle Thomas Shaw's question, which is when will the portal open? And the portal will be opening on March 25th.
Thank you. So the next question, could you provide any insights into the potential changes the new NTIA administration intends to implement regarding the BEAD program? I defer to Jonathan to this.
We have no insight into that. We're waiting to see if NTIA issues any additional guidance.
Thank you. So the next question, if an applicant misses the pre-qualification deadline, are they still able to submit all information in the application window, or would they become ineligible to apply if they don't submit the pre-qualification information by the deadline? Jonathan, do you want to could you answer that?
Yes. So at this point, the way we've structured the process, applicants are required to submit their pre-qualification information by April 9th. We're going to be working with applicants as they are, once the GMS is open, and we have flexibility under our initial proposal volume 2 to adjust that time frame, but we think it's to our advantage and the applicant's advantage to complete the pre-qualification part of the process. It is the more labor intensive. There's more information to be gathered. And so right now the deadline is April 9th.
So the next question, I'm waiting for information about how to inform NTIA CPUC of areas that are now after the challenge process served by RBS. Will this process be shared prior to the bid application window opening? This is important as it will substantially impact our proposal. Should I defer to Jonathan on this? If you can provide an answer, if not, we can take it offline.
I think we wanted to take that one offline.
So the next question, I believe, are about the pre-qualification. A follow-up to the previous question. For instance, will cybersecurity and supply chain plans need to be submitted in full? We want to be sure we can have complete documents if they are due in advance of the application. Is there an estimated date on when the pre-qual application will be ready? The checklist denotes this is not a comprehensive list. Additional information will be required when the application is released. In terms of maybe I defer to Ziggy on this, if in terms of the cybersecurity and supply chain plans. You're on mute, Ziggy.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't remember offhand if we have the entire policy or that it'll just have to be ready by award. So I'll have to check on that.
So there is one follow-up question for the pre-qualification. My takeaway from the answer is that if an applicant doesn't get their pre-qualification materials by April 9th, they will not be able to apply during this window. Is that right? So based on the current schedule, I think that's correct, but schedule is subject to be changed or updated. Jonathan, anything to add?
Just that I hear the concern that's being expressed, and we can take that back and consider that further. And to address the next question from Ken Nye, it's not that more information is needed, it's that the information takes longer for applicants generally to collect and submit, and that based upon observing the experience in other states and running other broadband programs in our state, that pre-qualification information often requires curing. And we want to be able to start the curing process as soon as possible to make sure that applicants are able to eventually be in compliance with all the programmatic requirements that NTIA requires. But ideally, we would have more time to run the entire program, but the NTIA rules for the BEAT program require us to submit our final proposal on or before October 2nd. So this is the schedule that we have developed to make sure that we can meet that requirement.
So if there is more information needed for pre-qual, why is the window so short? I think Jonathan's answer covered that. We can provide more information in our FAQ document. Just to clarify, the sub-grantee pre-qualification will be open for 15 days. That's correct, based on the current timeline that we have posted on our website from March 25th to April 9th. The next question, how do we change the classification of BSLs that are incorrectly labeled as eligible? How do we update incorrect information related to enforceable commitments? Jonathan, can I pass this to you?
Sure. So at this point in time, consistent with NTIA's programmatic rules, the challenge results have been posted on the CPUC's website, and that represents, subject to further revision for other enforceable commitments that have been issued, that map represents the locations that are eligible. NTIA has published guidance about a reconciliation process that is supposed to be completed after the subgrantee selection process has been finished, which will provide an opportunity to represent, to make sure that awards do not fund locations that have received funding through other awards and provide an opportunity for service providers to provide evidence that they are currently serving eligible locations as their locations that have been deemed eligible for BEAD funding. So the way the NTIA has laid out the process is that this reconciliation process happens at the end of the pre-selection process. So our map, subject to any additional revisions before March 25th to reflect enforceable commitments, is sort of where we are. These are the eligible locations, and this is what we're running our process against. We will, consistent with the requirements in the NOFO, conduct a reconciliation process at the end to make sure that no location is double funded or is being funded and already has service at it. And we have not, we're waiting for some further guidance from NTIA about how to conduct that reconciliation process.
What if your map is incorrect and there is no enforceable commitment?
We ask you if you believe that there's an error to the map to send an email with the specific address or BSL to bead@cpuc.ca.gov, and we will look into the issue.
So that's the same. I think the answer covers the next question. When we find an unserved BSL that is a large rock and not a building, how do we treat the BSL? I think your previous answer, Jonathan, should cover this one. Anything to add?
That is correct. You could send that information to us, and we will look into it. You know, the BSLs are provided by the FCC with further guidance from NTIA, and they represent the broadband serviceable locations as identified by those agencies. And we are obligated by the BEAD programmatic rules to provide that's part of our requirement, is to make sure that 100% of those BSLs are served, even if so there's this reconciliation process at the end to address potential errors in the fabric, which we're aware there are errors in the fabric.
So what is the email address? As we mentioned at the beginning of this office hour and previous ones, basically bead@cpuc.ca.gov.
For if it is related to
challenge process.
Right, you want to provide the address for the subgrantee selection questions?
So the next question is about the reconciliation. I think your point, Jonathan, was that they emailed their question to the BEAD to get more information about the specific locations. This is not, it's the process, as I mentioned at the beginning of this office hour, the focus of this office hour and also the FAQ document that we post as part of this process is questions related to subgrantee selection process. As Jonathan described, if there are locations that you have concern or like questions in terms of the map, please email them to bead@cpuc.ca.gov, and our team will review those questions. Are we able to start the pre-qualification process now? If yes, where? So the answer is no, as we published the timeline and mentioned earlier in this office hour, the pre-qualification process starts at March 25th. There are still resources that you can go through on our website to prep for some elements of the pre-qualification. How should we handle locations that are missing either location IDs or addresses? I think that would be, again, case by case about the specific locations. Please reach out to me. Go ahead, Jonathan.
So Michelle and others who have that question, please send specifics, either the lat longitude or the address of the location or the BSL, if you know the broadband serviceable location ID, to bead@cpuc.ca.gov, along with the specific issue you're looking to resolve.
The next question, would you provide link to the pre-qualification resources? I can ask the team to provide some links here. We include also this question in our FAQ document and provide the related links. So waiting for the next question. If you have joined recently, if you have a question, please write it up in the chat and we go through those one by one. Thank you.
Ali, I can go ahead and answer
Thank you. Yes.
Mitzi's
Okay.
question. So to comply with both the documentation transparency and having a process that is completely traceable, we are implementing, as most other states have done, the pre-qualification and application process through a grants management solution. Our grants management solution will not be available until March 25th. When our grants management solution becomes available, we will have a number of webinars to walk entities that are interested in applying through the specifics of how to navigate the GMS and some more specifics about the application. So unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't have, I'll put in quotation marks, paper versions of the applications. It's being done through a GMS, and it's the only practical way for us to be able to handle the volume of information. And we think it's also easier for applicants to be able to put all their information into the GMS. So if they need to update it, and we'll be using that to conduct any curing that's necessary. Those communications will occur through the GMS. At this point in time, we can look at your request there's been a request made to update with more specifics on the application. We can look at updating that checklist and see if there's additional information we can provide.
Okay, let's wait another minute to see if there are any other questions. If not, we can go ahead and wrap up this this session. For the pre-qual list, it mentions certifications for labor practices. Is that from a lawyer, executive? Ziggy, do you have any input to that, or do we need to take that offline?
I'd like to take it offline if you don't mind.
Sure. So we will take this offline and get back with an answer in our FAQ document.
Actually, I can answer that. For labor practices, it's no need for a lawyer to certify. The applicant just certifies it. That's fine. Sorry, I thought it was a financial related question. Sorry. I can take the next question. So let me read it aloud. For letters of credit, or I assume also for performance bonds, typically include a specific amount of financial surety. How will we be able to submit those in pre-qualification if we don't have the final details required for project design that will be submitted in the application window? So there are there are three different elements. There are two really. There's the letter of commitment. Basically, yes, we will. The bank or institution will say, yes, we intend to give a letter of credit. Then there's the letter of credit that comes afterwards. For the intent, for the value, just put what you plan to have available to bid with. So presumably when you talk with a financial institution, they will want to know how much you want to propose for maximum. So you'll agree on some kind of amount. Of course, it doesn't have to match anything that you actually end up with. And so we're just, when you then get your award, of course, you'll have to come up with the specific amounts that you committed to. But before then, an up to amount is perfectly fine. Whatever works for you can be in one or multiple letters.
Could I ask a quick clarification on that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in my experience, the project design can change, like leading up to application submission, even in those last couple of days, right? Which can impact the budget. So what if during pre-qualification, we underestimate what we're going to need and that's not quite enough when we get to the end? Would we have an opportunity to submit a different one during the application window? Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And we will even, things happen, and sometimes you may decide that rather than a letter of credit, even though I had a commitment for a letter of credit, you decide that it makes more sense to provide a performance bond. That is allowed as well. So we just want to make sure that you can deliver, and this is part of this sort of test to see that you know what you're doing and you have the means to do it.
So the next question, so I'm going to defer to you, Ziggy. For this requirement, certification of compliance with legal and program requirements, including BABA, Build America, Buy America, environmental and historic preservation, and FCC regulation. Is this just us signing a letter stating we will comply, or do we need to provide some agency and get a certification?
No agency certification, just state that you intend to comply.
And just to clarify, for the environmental historic preservation, that's a much larger activity. There's quite a bit of resources on NTIA's website for entities that are going to be applying to the BEAD program. That is more than just a letter saying you will comply. There's a number of requirements that and a process that any project needs to go through.
Yeah, when I say that this requirement, I am restricting myself solely to questions of do you intend to that we have in the pre-qual and the application itself, not to the actual compliance that you will commit to afterwards. So this is just the intent.
And a follow-up question to that, and that needs to be done in pre-qual. So I think that would be two separate questions, basically, based on BABA versus environmental requirements. So the ones that are about environmental questions that are about the project and specific to the project, those are very likely be part of the application and not the pre-qual.
I'm sorry, was this part, is this the question that's in the chat for the Build America?
No, the question, the follow-up above, and that needs to be done in pre-qual, basically follow up the question. For compliance with Build America, Buy America, is that for the ISP in general or just a BEAD proposal in specific?
It's just for the project. Basically, you're saying that the materials that you are going to be buying and that they will comply with the Build America, Buy America requirement. So they obviously don't apply to anything outside of this project.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and wrapping up. I don't see any other questions. So if you can have the slides up again. So if you haven't, as I mentioned during this office hour, if you haven't already, please sign up using the our webpage. If you can go to the next slide to receive email updates about the BEAD program. As mentioned, and my colleague put that in the chat, if you have questions about the sub-grantee selection process, please email those to beadgrant@cpuc.ca.gov. If questions are about the challenge process or broader about the BEAD program, please send them to bead@cpuc.ca.gov. As mentioned earlier, the first version of FAQ document has been posted on our website. We are working on the second version, basically an update with more questions that we have received from you. That should be posted on our website in the next couple of business days, and then we will also notify the service list when that is posted. If you can go to the next slide. So as you know, over the past few months and going forward for the next few months, we continue with our webinars and office hours on Tuesday and Thursdays, 1 to 2 p.m. as part of our BEAD outreach opportunities. Please check our website for the detailed topics and exact for the dates that especially the webinar happens. These webinars and office hours are open to anyone interested in attending. Registration links for the office hour is available. There's just one for the webinars. They will be available when the webinar is scheduled. These sessions provide an open forum for stakeholders to ask questions, seek clarification, and receive guidance on the BEAD application process. Stakeholders are encouraged to attend these sessions to fully understand the requirements and opportunities provided through the BEAD program. These events are designed to promote transparency, collaboration, and success for all potential subgrantees. Thank you for your participation and engagement today. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.